Hey, this is Dan Conrad with Protect Termite and Pest Control out of Knoxville, Tennessee. I am, and you should, be listening to the world's #1 pest control training podcast, Pest Geek Podcast with Frank Hernandez.
Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek podcast. I am Frank Hernandez, your Pest Geek, here discussing all things pest. We want to remind our audience to join in on the revolution. That's right, join in on the conversation, be part of the society. Pest Geek Podcast Listeners Group on Facebook. And we're on YouTube. We're on the web, pestgeekpodcast.com. Check out there the notes, everything that we put into the podcast. They're all on there. And now for today's topic. I've got on the phone the legendary Triple D, Daniel Dye II. Daniel, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you very much, Franklin. It's great to be here. I listen to a lot of your podcasts, by the way. I just wanted to tell you that. And I think you're doing a great job.
Well,
we've had some good people there lately, too.
Yes, we have. We've been very blessed. Hard work pays off. We've been doing this now almost, it's going to be 3 years that I've been into it. I took a hiatus from it. And I've been swamped with work lately, and we've been growing like crazy. And I'm just, I haven't had the time to create any content. So I'm having great people like you on that have the content to do it for me. So it is a real honor and a pleasure, because I've been following you for a while, and all the groups and the work that you do and the work that you did. And it is a real honor. To have someone of your caliber, of your expertise here on the podcast. So thank you for, and I know that you're in semi-retirement, so you have a lot more time for people like me. But I do thank you. It is really a pleasure. We're going to be talking about, what you've been through in your career, and we're going to take it to kind of like how you got started in the pest control business, because everybody's got a unique story. I think pest control people have unique stories, unlike I think any other career. How they actually, because nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to be the bug guy. I never did. I wanted to be the computer geek guy, because that's what, I was trained, and that's what I was taught. I never woke up in the morning saying, I want to be the bug guy. So take us back to when you got started. What year did you get into pest control, and how did you get in there?
I actually got into pest control. I can do this, I think. in 1977. It was kind of like a natural for me, because growing up, I've always been interested in insects, spiders, salamanders, and frogs, and snakes, and all the little critters that crawled and were creepy to everybody else was interesting to me. And after high school, I did several different things, shipyard, Tampa shipyard. Boy, that was an experience. And here, a hippie boy walking around in the late 60s, early 70s around all these rough shipyard people. That lasted about 2 years. And then I did some, other things. But how I got to in the industry, I was actually working for a carpet wholesaler in Ybor City in Tampa, and we were doing some work for Arab Termite and Pest Control. They were building a new corporate office in Tampa, and they were there and buying the floor covering they needed. And I just became friends with this one person there. I found out later he was head of sales. He was like the sales manager. And so talking with him, that was in the late 1976. By the first of, well, not New Year's, but the first week. And it was a cold winter, I remember. It actually snowed in Tampa at that time. So it was quite interesting. But that's how I got started. They put me in the termite department, teaching me how to do subterranean termite work. That was the first thing. But it's funny, the first couple of weeks, I was actually on the fumigation crew, and my knuckles were all raw and all that, and I was wondering, I go, do I really want to do this? but I persevered and went into termite finally, doing subterranean termite work, and then finally into L&O, which is my favorite, as a matter of fact, in the pest control industry. I love L&O. That was just one of my passions. And then I did some GHP and stuff as well. That's basically how I got started. I've had two of my own companies in Tampa. After the second one, I realized that I'd rather work for somebody else, because having your own company, we grew fast. It was like having another wife and 15 kids that didn't want to come in Monday or Fridays. How's that sound?
That is really interesting. By the way, back in 1977, I think I was 7 years old. I was moving from Jersey to Miami, and in 1977, and I was 7 years old. So just a reference point there of how long you've been doing this, and I was still playing with my G.I. Joes. But yeah, that's interesting that you've actually went to work for somebody else. You learned the business. You started a company. And take us through that whole process for you, because this was back in late 70s, early 80s?
Yeah, I actually worked for other people until 1985. That year, I became fully certified. I went and took all of my exams and passed them. And by 86, we had our first company up and running. We borrowed $2,000 from a friend. And by the end of the first year, we had made a 7% profit. First year, 7% profit. And people are going to laugh at me, but I built that business with a partner. His name is George Rossello, out of Tampa. He's still in the business, as a matter of fact. And we built the business pretty quickly, and built it on WDOs. That's what I did. I did real estate inspections and brought in business through there, termite work, GHP work, L&O work, all from just contacts doing WDOs. We built it quickly. But by the second year, I pretty much had my fill with it. I said, I'm going to go to work for somebody else. This is just too much. It's like I said, another wife and 15 kids.
Yeah. It's just. What was the biggest for you? Is because look, there's a lot of people who, that's very interesting that we got into this. People who start and they're usually fed up with working for somebody else or the company they're with, or they got just bitter with the whole industry, and they started up. And you started up and you decided that it was easier for you to go work for somebody else, which is very rare that we hear about that. What was it about the whole business, running the business, that made you want to go back and work for somebody else?
It was basically the time that I had to put into it all the time. It was sometimes 7 days a week.
Yes.
Because we did fumigations.
Yeah.
And whenever you did government jobs, school, we did the school board, by the way. It was on Thanksgiving, Christmas. You didn't have holidays because you were putting up tents and taking them down, doing sub work because nobody was there at the time. So it was just too much. And my passion was to teach. I'm going to back up to the days in Arab. There were two people that taught me pretty well when I went to class. And I'm trying to remember their names. But, gosh. That's one part of getting older, by the way. I got it. It popped in. Cecil Giles was one of the instructors, and the other one was Tom Wisdom. Tom Wisdom was a graduate from UF, and he was the director, technical director, and they taught the classes. And Cecil is long gone. He was probably in his 40s or 50s when I met him. I liked their teaching approach, and I said, that's what I want to do. And so when I finally sold my portion of the business, I had a year non-compete. So my wife and I bought lawn equipment and did lawns for 1 year. And then after that, I became like the technical director for a company called Gator Exterminator in Tampa. And then a few years later, I started another company. I should have been shot.
So you wanted to see if you had it to do it, and you went back and tried it again?
Yeah.
And what happened this time?
This time it lasted several years, and I didn't like what was going on in Tampa. Things were changing fast, not only in the industry, but Tampa itself. I didn't want to raise my boys there, so I got rid of that one, and Yvonne and I and the boys moved to Destin, Florida, and up in the Panhandle. I always called it God's country, and it was a great place to go. And that's when I started working with Florida Pest Control. Back in 1994, 95, somewhere in there. And I've never looked back. I'll never, ever start another company again. And here I am, maybe jumping into some consulting work, but I think it might be different this time.
Yeah, at least you're not putting up tent crews on a Sunday. That's a big there's a big difference between doing consulting work and leading a tent crew on a weekend of Thanksgiving. So that's a real big one. But no, you worked there,
and I don't have to worry. I was saying I don't have to worry about who's not coming in Monday or Friday. So
yeah, I know that's been our biggest challenge. I think everybody's going to, which we'll probably get into. But you got to work for this company, and how big was that company at the time when you started there? Do you know? Do you remember?
You're talking about Arab?
No, and where you were at Florida Pest when you started there.
Yeah. Oh. At Florida Pest Control at that time, they had 19 branches.
Okay. And
probably 400 and something employees. And then they didn't add on the 20th branch until 2006. And that was the Tampa branch, believe it or not. I always told Mr. Sapp, Senior, he's the one that started Florida Pest Control, that if he had a Tampa office when I first got into business, I would probably be one of his, long-term employees, because I would have stayed there because they were a joy to work.
So you worked there how many years?
Florida Pest Control, I was there a total of 18 years.
Gotcha. And so
I took a 3-year hiatus from them. When I was up in the Panhandle, I took 3 years away doing some other stuff. So, and you were. I probably shouldn't have done that, but I did.
Well, we're still, the good thing is we're never too old to learn, I guess. So I still do stuff that I'm like thinking, what the heck am I thinking at my age? But you worked there as the training coordinator. So you got to do a lot of what you thought you wanted to do in training and that you were good at. What was that? Because I know we're going to talk about a lot, just your insect knowledge and the things that you accumulated and your ability to ID pest. And I think that's one of the biggest things that always comes up in groups where you're at, is that the ability to ID pests. How did the whole training coordinating thing work for you there? How was that? How did you get into that, and how did that work out for you?
Well, working out of the Fort Walton Beach office, I did sales for them. I ran the L&O crew in Fort Walton, became the assistant manager in Pensacola, and then back to Fort Walton, and then finally ended up in Panama City running the L&O department there. And I just got... we were having an annual meeting, and some of the training director and another fella came up, along with Tom McDavid. I'm trying to think of all the names. And Tom McDavid took a likings to me, And he went back and he was talking to the general manager, and I had already met DR, who's the owner of Florida Pest Control. And then the position came open in 2002, and I interviewed for it, and I got the job. And that's when I became the training coordinator, and finally got the job I've always wanted in 2002, and that was to train. So
that's amazing. That is to be able to, figure out what you're good at in whatever field you're in, and then decide, this is the job I want, and then, persevere in that position until you can get the job that you want. That is really cool, because I've struggled with that in a lot of places where I had to work. And for the longest time, I always knew that, you and I have a lot of similar things, believe it or not. You've just been able to do it, for longer than I have. But I started out in lawn and order. I still have the greatest passion for lawn and order. It's just that it's the most, I've experienced it as the most difficult thing to hire and train people for, because of all the things that are involved, not just the insect, but the plant and the plant health care and the nutrition and diseases. And most people just don't have that passion to want to learn all these things, and they just want to spray something or do something. And to me, my passion is actually training and teaching, which is a lot of what I hear from you, what I've always been good at, because I've worked in several capacities in different fields where I've been a trainer and a teacher, and that's always been something that I can naturally do, is train people. I probably can train people to be better than I am most of the time. I think that that is one of the things that I get a joy out of, is to see people do better than what I could possibly do if I did that. And so that. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal, is that the teacher and the student is to teach the student to be better than you, and inspire them to dig deeper, because you can only teach them so much, and the rest is up to them. And you have to instill in their mind to take it further. Don't stop here. Just keep going. Take it further. And hopefully they do.
Yeah, a lot of people struggle with that, especially like people. We see a lot of the discussions and a lot of the negativity that goes on in our industry. Like any other industry, people are discouraged in a lot of places they work, and I think if managers and people who were training other people saw the opportunity they have to take people further than they're able to go. A lot of the time, people don't grow in the business, don't grow in their branch, don't grow in what they're doing, because a lot of people just don't want to. They're intimidated by somebody else doing something better. I've never felt that as a manager. I always felt that my people, the better they were, my job was to elevate them. And if I can show somebody I can send somebody to somebody's house, whether they're, an IT tech or whether a windshield repair guy, that was confident that I could say with all confidence, this is the best person that I can send to you to do the work. To me, that was more important than for me to say, that would be, I think, the ultimate reflection of me as a manager, is to be able to get and try and train the best people. And that was my job and my responsibility, not to, they weren't outshining me in any way. I don't know if I'm making sense to you and how a lot of people feel. And I hear the conversations of people that, don't want their people outshining them. I think as a manager, as a teacher, as a trainer, that would be probably the ultimate compliment that anybody could pay me. I don't know if you see that or what. You've been in the field a long time. What do you see there? And what can we do about it? Because I think that's one of the biggest problems that we also have, which I wanted to talk to you about in our industry.
Well, no, I'm with you there, and I agree 100%. Our job, if you're a manager or a teacher, well, let's go to the manager part. If you're working for a large corporation like I was, and you're teaching your people to be the best that they can be, and the ones that outshine you are the ones that you focus on, because that person there, when it's time for you to move up, like in a company that I work for, you better have somebody there to take over.
Yes.
If you don't, you will not move up because there's nobody else that can do your job. So and not only that, it makes your job so much easier when you have competent people out in the field and they know how to solve a problem without calling you, every 5 minutes. I've got this issue. What do I do? So, no, I'm with you. We need to train our technicians and our supervisors. Let's remember them to be the best that they can be, and make you look good,
Right.
it all reflects back on you. So no, you're hitting it on the head.
I always thought that it was my job to work myself up out of a job, not to keep everybody down so I can feel secure. I just never been that kind of person. I just can't relate. A lot of people do that. I've worked for managers that have done that. Luckily, I've worked for a lot better managers than bad managers. I mean, I've been very, very, very lucky that very few people saw the ability in me and were willing to invest in me to help me grow. And I got the promotions and the things because of that. So I think that in our industry, we can't have people that are afraid of being either, they want to be the go-to guy. That's a slavery job to me. To be the go-to guy that everybody has to ask the question because you feel good about yourself having all the answers. I want all the people to have all the answers. I mean, that I just see that a lot. And I hear about it a lot. And, I've never worked for a large pest control company. I never did. I don't know what that's like. I did work for a lot of large corporations. I worked for probably the largest corporation in the glass industry for several years. Mm-hmm. So I know what corporate America is like. But I've never, been in the business of pest control. So a lot of people, the things they talk about, I can't relate to it. I don't understand it. So that's been, one of the things for me is how do we, and that's the whole purpose of this podcast when I started it, is I saw the need for people to learn that they couldn't stop to take the training. I see that constantly. I know you work for a large company. You were the training coordinator. They take CEUs once a year. They're in 8 hours maybe of class once a year. The rest of the time, they're just in do mode. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that we need is to make the training accessible all the time, year round. And I've said I'm part of the advisory committee with two committees for the urban pest control here with our extension service. The biggest problem that we have is not that we don't have the training courses available. The biggest problem that we have is that the people can't send their people to training. I've been told by government people who they know they need the training, says we just can't afford to take the time off to send people to training. And I think I see such a huge deficit in the training that is needed. One of the things that I admire about you is your ability to be able to identify insects. And I had the same challenge, but I'm self-taught and I'm self-disciplined. And you mentioned something. We were having a conversation about how did you learn and the discussion that we were having about learning to ID pests. What are the steps that are needed, and why is that so important? Let's get into that because I think that's vital.
Yeah, well, my ID, actually, the ID in the pest started when I was pretty young. I got to know my insects pretty well around, the area I lived. Now, scientific names and stuff like that at the time, it was just beetle. Today I know that a beetle is a coleoptera and so on. A moth and a butterfly is a lepidoptera. A fly is a diptera. And that stuff I didn't know back then. But in my position where I'm at, or where I was anyway, as a training coordinator, I had a lot of opportunity there to sharpen that skill because I would get insects in from our technicians and also insects brought in by our customers and stuff like that. And they ended up on my desk. And the good thing is that the entomologist that was there at the time, my mentor actually, Bruce McGowan, he put them on my desk on purpose, and I had better not go to him until I have totally exhausted, my ID on that particular insect. So you have to learn the difference between a beetle and a true bug, a shield bug, or an assassin bug, because they can look a lot alike. You have to learn the difference between a robber fly, a bee robber fly, and a bumblebee, because those two can look alike. And there's a lot of flies out there that look like, bees and wasps. And there's some spiders that are actually ant mimics that look like ants and stuff like that. So you have to know your classifications and be able to look at a bug and at least know where to start. And one thing I really hate doing and hate seeing is guesswork on some of the whoops, sorry about that. My sister just dinged me here. Let me throw my phone over here so we don't hear that again. Anyway, on some of our Facebook groups where they come up with a bug and they show a bug, and sometimes a picture, forget it, you can't ID it no matter what.
Yeah.
And then other times it's a pretty clear picture, and then all of a sudden you get these people throwing names in there, and it's nothing like that, and it's guesswork. Before I ID an insect, I always verify. I'll look at that and I'll say, okay, that is a wheel bug, or no. Here's a good one: the leaf-footed bug or leaf-legged bug, which looks like a wheel assassin bug, if you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So, I'll look at that thing and that I'll know what it is. But let's say I wasn't sure. Before I put the answer down, I am going to verify it. Yeah, just to make sure, because mom is at that point, and I don't want Daniel D. II to give a wrong idea.
Let me ask you this. To be able to, what did you do? I mean, to really learn, what are the steps you took? What is the process? Because, to learn to ID the bugs. I mean, how is it that you got to be good at it? Because there's obviously, you have to have a system, or you have to have something in place that you follow in order to be able to get good at IDing bugs, and at least what family they're in, what their biology is. What is it that you did, or what is it that you use?
Gotcha. Yeah, the first thing I did, I studied outside of my normal work day. I took the incentive to get guidebooks and insect books and stuff like that, and read and learn and look at the photographs. And one thing that has helped me a lot in the last 10 years is actually photographing these things, because there's a lot of insects that I see and I photograph, and I'm not sure what it is. And then I have to ID it, and boom, it's in my head at that point. So a lot of it is taking the time to study them, get the books, get the guidebooks, and do the research. And also knowing where to start. If it's an ant-looking creature, then, look at ants. If it's something that looks like a wasp and only has two wings, a pair of wings, but it looks like a wasp, you got to know that a wasp will have two pair instead of one pair. So if it has one pair, then that's going to be a fly. So you start looking at flies. Am I making sense here?
Yeah. So knowing and in my first exposure, I'll give you because like I said, nobody ever in the first beginning part of my career in this business, which was 12 years ago, nobody ever sat down with me and showed me. I didn't take my first CEU class until I was a year into this, and that's what really opened up my eyes. In the meantime, I was struggling because I started out in LNO, and my LNO training was you mix this insecticide with this insecticide in a 100-gallon tank. You mix this fungicide, you mix this fertilizer, and you fill up that tank and you spray everything with that. And when you're done with that, you repeat the process all over again. That was my training in LNO. And when I started hitting my head against the wall, where I was coming up with pests and customers were calling and complaining of why their plant still had pest, especially if I was spraying it every month, I had no answer. And what I've learned all my entire life is that if I wanted to be good at something, I had to take the initiative and learn outside, which is exactly what you said, is learn on my own time. Right. A lot of people have this attitude, and it's not just pest control industry, it's in every industry, that the company should be paying for the training. The company should be doing more to train them. The company should be, and they realize that a lot of companies, we just don't have the time in the working hours that you have to produce sometimes. It isn't available. And I agree that it is a vital necessity. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we have in our industry is the lack of training, of real training. But you have to take that initiative. And what I did, and I'll tell you my little experience, which was mostly serendipity. I mean, this was not strategic. I just knew that I had to learn and I had to figure out. So I took pictures on my phone of plants, and then I would go on the Saturday when I had finished all my work and I had time, I would go down to Homestead and I would take him to nurseries. And they would tell me, yes, this is this plant and this is this plant. I had no clue what the plant was. I was spraying these things. I had no clue. And I would then go back and I said, well, I have this insect. What is it? And they would kind of tell me what the insect was. But they were doing the same thing we were. They're in a nursery. They're just spraying weekly, dealing with everything there. And I went and I discovered, and I was frustrated, and I can't remember exactly where I've got the information to call the extension service. And I called the extension, talked to the agent, and he told me, send me a picture of it and I'll help you with that. And then he turned me on to what we know as IFAS. And when I found that database of all this material that was available, that's where I got hooked. So that I would come home every evening with pictures. And then I would go in and I say, it looks like this, it looks like that, Google it. And then I would go into IFAS and pull a sheet on that. And then I would learn all about the plant disease, the plant insects, everything that was about that plant. That's how I learned L&O. That was my whole education in L&O. My background isn't in anything related to plants or anything. But that's how I learned. And I think that's what, by the time I was, 9 months in after that, I knew more plants, more insects, and more diseases than guys that were in this field for 10, 15 years in just like 9 months, because I took that time to really want to be a professional, even though I wasn't and I didn't know anything. And I think that's where you nailed it, where you said, you did it on your spare time. And I think that's where people really need to understand that their company isn't going to do everything for them. That if you really want to be a professional, you're going to have to pay the price, in most cases, to do it yourself.
Yes. IFAS has a ton of publications. You said sheets, and that's what they call them. They're publication sheets.
Yes.
And they're all numbered. And I have a computer here, my little MacBook, and it's called Publications of Interest of these IFAS publications. When I'm having to talk to somebody about a certain pest, a lot of times I'll refer to that and I'll read that first before I have a conversation. Not that I don't know my stuff, which, but you've got to refresh your mind sometimes.
Right.
So I want to make sure I give proper, information. So those IFAS publications are extremely important. I've been using those publications since the 70s. So, yes, you hit it on the head.
And the
Franklin.
best part of that is totally free. You just have to know what you're looking for, but the information is free. You don't have to pay for it. It's like, why would you, people saying, what book would I buy? And I always tell people, hey, just get the IFA sheets, because that will get you started for free. You don't have to invest, because a lot of guys don't have the money. The $200 for a book. Something I got in, right here in front of me, pest management operations, right in front of me. And that's $100 and something book. It wasn't cheap. But this, you can get started, with nothing. And, as long as you can invest the time to, print those out or download them, it's all there.
We used to be able to go to IFAS and they would have stacks of publications in, little, slips. And you just find what you need and pull the publication out. I guess they still do that.
Yeah, actually, I was there like last year at the extension office, and I was doing a class, And one of the entomologists came to me with a stack, like it was 2 inches thick. And I said, here's everything I have on that. And she just lays it on the desk and gives it to me. And I'm like, you could have just given it to me in a thumb drive.
Yeah.
But she's still old school, I guess. And she gives me a whole stack. This is like 2 inches thick, man. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah. I still have them here. I'll be reading them. But yeah, I mean, I do a ton of the Google. One of the things that I love about Google is the Google Scholar. And whenever I'm doing as long as I got that scientific name, man, I can pull up every study that's ever been published on that bug and read it. And sometimes it's several hundred pages. And people are like, how do you have time to read all this? This is, I don't have time not to. I have to know what it is I'm doing. I'm dealing with very expensive gardens. These people are expecting, perfection. I got to know why it is that sometimes we're not being able to control the pest. What are we running into? We're ground zero here in South Florida for invasive exotic pests. We're getting a ton of them. So we got to stay on top of this as pros, almost on a monthly basis, stay on top of things, because if not, it'll catch you by surprise and bite you in the butt. And go ahead.
You hit it on the head again. You have to know your pest, and you dealing with L&O, you have to know the pest, and you have to know the host too. That plant. Yeah. Why is that pest attracted to that plant to begin with? And that, as well as termite as well, but mainly GHP. Why is that infestation there? Keep it from happening again. Of course, we can go in there and spray and pray and bait and wait and all that kind of stuff. But if we know how to exclude that pest from getting there again, we're that much ahead of it. And that makes you more of a professional. So that's the importance of knowing your pest, the biology, their habits, what they love to feed on, and the type of weather, the conditions they like, and stuff like that is very important. And I think that's one of the main places that our main the thing we fail to do. Let's put it that way.
Right. As
far as the pest control industry, anybody can be taught to carry a B&G and bait, and where to bait, and how to drill a hole, and spray a tree and a shrub and the lawn and all that. But you have to know why we do that particular type treatment.
Right.
And the only way you're going to do that is to learn that pest.
Yeah, no, I think it's vital. I think we need to, we just need to get more information out to where it's easily accessible, that people can consume it. I mean, we live literally in a social media society. We're in an audio video society where people are constantly being bombarded. And I think the industry, I think, we were talking about challenges, and since you're a trainer and you do this, I've had this argument with people who I respect. We can always argue and differ. We don't have to be, disrespectful, even, if we disagree on. But I'm a Gen Xer, I think, who thinks more like a millennial. So I'm trapped in a millennial. I'm a millennial trapped in a Gen Xer's body, and I totally embrace whatever new technology comes the way, because I realize I can't fight against it. It's going to happen, regardless whether we like it or not. A lot of people kick against the goad and don't want to embrace what's coming. And in training, I sat down this discussion in a round table of city people and people who are with, they're entomologists, they're pathologists. And I said, guys, you keep wanting people to come to a classroom. And I said, I understand there's value in that. There's a time for testing and things like that. But for general information, of if most one I even had this with what's his name, was it Lee, the guy who runs the CEU training for state of Florida. He does the CEU. He runs that whole website for CEU training, which I have CEU certified training on there.
You're talking about with DAX?
Yeah, with DAX. With DAX.
Yeah. And, I don't know who's running it these days.
Okay, so we had this. I was having this conversation about putting this. Why is it that we can have this? Most of the classes that are being taught are lectures, You really don't participate a lot. You don't take any testing. There's no verification. Why can't we just put this on video? Why can't we just put it on audio, put it on iTunes, make it accessible, the lectures? And there's just an enormous amount of refusal to do this and bucking against this. When most of the time you say, I want you to be in the classroom, you have to be. I said, why? All you're doing is lecturing. We're not being tested. We show up and, you give us a little quiz at the end of the video and we are on our way. And that was our CEU class. I said, this whole idea that these classes need to be on a platform where they're easily consumable, where people can go in and get this training. And that's what I've been pushing for. I sound like a broken record, pushing for this because I realized, look, I go to lynda.com. I go to these places to get and I'll pay for it, because I want to train, but I want it at 12 o'clock at night when I'm home and my kids went to sleep and I've worked all day and I don't have time to train. That's the time I have. And that's when I get access to it. And I think that, in your training, you did a lot with, I saw your, your pictures and your videos where you have, 20 guys in a classroom from your company. Your company's doing it. They were doing it. They were I saw the picture. You were constantly training somebody. What do you think are the biggest challenges that you're looking at that we're facing now? We're facing a shortage of people that we can't hire. We have a time shortage. We have the techs are overworked. They're pulling probably 30 to 40% more than that route can really handle on a time basis. Mm-hmm. What do you think the biggest challenge is? And I know I challenged you with that question for the pest control industry right now. Based on everything we've discussed, I know we've thrown a lot of things out there, but if you can nail something down that you say, man, I'm really concerned about this, what would it be and what can we do about it?
I think that our biggest challenge is accepting the change that has to happen, as far as, training our technicians. We definitely need to do better training. And I believe in monthly training, by the way. Time set aside to sit down with your technicians and go over a particular pest or a technique or something like that. Monthly training. One of the other challenges is to start, and the industry did this to itself, stop giving technicians 20 accounts to apply or to do in a day's time. That is ridiculous. It's just right. It's crazy. The customer is not getting quality work. You hit the nail on the head a little while ago when you said that, and I'm trying to remember exactly how you said it now, is that somebody asked, how do you have the time to do that? And you basically need to take the time to do that, because in the future, the time you spend on that is going to actually save you time. And right. The time that we spend training our technicians properly in the long run is going to save you time and money, because turnover will be less. Customer turnover will be less. It all molds together when we do it the proper way and the training is there, and we don't expect the technicians to go out there and start at 7 a.m. and work till 8 p.m. trying to do 20 accounts, and take care of a couple of trouble calls as well, and maybe even try to sell a couple.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the things that I come from a sales background, so everything for me is sales, and I come from a technology background, and when I see the stuff that is being imposed on a lot of technicians, to where I think this is I look at other industries. I've been in the IT world. I've been in the glass industry. I've worked in every facet of home improvement. It's the only industry that I've seen where the technicians are paid based on commission production. They're paid, if they want an increase in their pay, they got to sell. You don't see a glass technician going out to install your windshield and being paid a percentage and then being told, by the way, you need to drop off a couple of business cards while you're there, because we need to see if there's more broken windows. Technician work in our industry is administrative. It's sales. They're doing so many things and trying to do their work and keeping that customer happy from calling back. I think it's just over. I mean, I see it. To me, it's over. I do it because I'm an owner. I had to do it. I had to do the sales. I got to wear 15 hats. But as a technicians technically are not wired that way. It's very rare that a technician does technical work, does sales work, does marketing, does administrative. Real good technicians are wired to do things and fix stuff. And I think that our industry is doing it to itself a lot of the times because all the stuff we put on a technician to do, and you've been long enough to see it in several companies, how do we deal with that?
Yeah. That's a $1 million question. I mean, this is something that I even struggled with at my employer. They do it. Everybody does it.
Right.
And in my personal professional opinion is it's wrong. We need to stop that because in the long run the customer hurts. It's the customer's the one that gets hurt, and they're not getting the value that they're actually paying for, and that's one of the reasons why our industry is looked down upon quite a bit, and you've seen it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
They think that anybody in the pest control industry is in it because they couldn't do anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, as an owner, I get it. And people tell me, they're going to tell me how to control the bug when I get there. And I'll tell you, it's been one of the few industries where the customer dictates how the service is going to be performed. I don't see you when the IT guy shows up to fix your computer, you're telling him how to install that motherboard. It just doesn't happen. But they're telling us where to put the product, how to do it, and all this, and it's like, where's the manual?
I just had a conversation with Larry Wise yesterday on this, and he asked me the question, or somebody, it might have not have been him, but they asked me, what do you do when somebody tells you, how to do your job? And it might have been in a podcast somewhere. But anyway, what I did, if I can't change their mind, I would, of course, I wouldn't get rid of them right away, but I would sell 2 more jobs, then I'd get rid of them. So.
Yeah, you got to make up for it before you. Yeah, it's kind of don't quit your job until you have another one.
Yes, because but we've done that to ourselves because a lot of customers expect you to come in and turn right with your B&G and hit every baseboard in the house because that's what they've seen for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And part of the training, a good training, is for that technician to be able to talk to the customer, to communicate with the customer, and explain that what that is, it just doesn't work. Things have changed. One thing I remember telling a customer once, who he had a bad knee, and he was talking about getting it operated on, and he was one that wanted me to do the baseboards. And I said, well, let's think about this for a minute. And I said, now you're going to have your knee operated on. Now, are you going to the doctor that's going to cut a big gash across your knee, or are you going to go to the doctor that has kept up with technology and he's going to poke a couple holes in the side and go in there and fix it without having a big old scar there? And he looked at me and I said, pest control has changed. The technique has changed. We have products that target the insect, and that's what we're doing here. We're applying these baits because that's where the insect is. We're applying this liquid because that's where the insect will be if it comes in, and so on and so on. How many times have you seen a roach on the baseboard? It just doesn't happen.
Right.
Usually. I mean, it could, but and that's we need to explain to the customer how the pest industry has changed, and once again, a lot of that is our own fault. It's just the way we did this. Everybody does it the same way. Everybody tries to get out there and does 20 accounts. Even in L&O, I remember pushing somebody to go out there and do 15 accounts in a day's time. trying to control the shrub problem, the turf problem, and looking at the trees or whatever. Impossible.
Yeah.
You're going to cut corners somewhere.
Yeah. I've never been able to, in 12 years, been able to do 15 accounts. The most we can do in a day is really, we're doing large properties, mostly, and we're doing, 6 to 8 at tops. We're doing 10 if I can throw 2 GHPs in there on my route when I'm on the way, and I try to separate the two. It's very hard. It's very, in a lot of time, like I said, you're waking up at 7. You worked you're Illinois. You worked through the entire day through that beating sun at 12, 2 o'clock, 4, and it's sundown, and we're like, we can get 3 more in if we can do it before 7. It's like you're killing. This is why we have the huge turnover, and why I can't. I mean, I've had it where my guys used to work 40 hours. I don't have anybody working over 40 hours, and there you go. And I've learned to say, we sell high priced accounts, and it does. Compared to the growing companies, and I know I understand that the growing companies that are tagging on, an X amount of growth a year. Some of them are at 100% growth a year. We can't manage with the job market the way it is, the training that's required to do L&O. We can't grow more than 20-25% a year because it takes me too long I've spent 4 months looking for one technician. Over 100 applicants. Yeah. And when I interview them and when I look at what it's going to require, they have no desire for ongoing education. That's one of the biggest problem I have. They can't read. How are they going to read a label? They can't read. Yeah. They can't do math. I mean, simple math is like, how do you find the square footage? Can't do it. So they can't read. There's no desire for ongoing. They're just there people are applying for a paycheck. And to what I figured is I have to poach from a competing industry and make it so freaking attractive that they can grow and do that. And it's very, very difficult because you're going from working why would you leave an office where you're making $12 an hour to work in the sun unless you absolutely loved it?
Well, you have to love it. And I'm with you there. I remember, out there, and when I did lawns, we would probably top it off at 6 or 7 applications in a daytime. Yeah. And instead of the 12 and 13 and 14. But you have to love it. You have to enjoy it. And what I like about lawns is, of course, it takes a lot more. You have to be you have to know your diseases. You have to know your plants. But that is something that you can go back a week later, 2 weeks. See,
you got to go back 2 weeks later.
You can go back 2 weeks later and actually see the fruits of your labor. That what you learned and what you did actually worked to take care of that pest, or to turn that ornamental around with the fertilization that you put on it, or the turf. You can actually see what you've done. Right. You can't do that in termite, by the way. You go out there and you drill your hose, you apply the product, and hope and pray that the termites are controlled. So there's.
Yeah, no, I've never done termite because I've stuck to GHP and L&O. And one of the standing policies that I've had forever, that if you go and do a job and you find, most of the gardens we're not finding serious problems, but in lawn, it's always a problem with fungal disease. And if we find fungal disease, we have to come back and do an automatic callback, because I don't want that customer calling me 3 weeks later and going, why do I still have fungus on my lawn? It isn't like the ants. We're not waiting for a callback. And that discipline, that took me forever to train one technician to say, if you apply the product, you got to put it on your record and create an automatic follow-up to come back next week. And so many people don't want to do that. They're just spray it and wait until the customer calls and complains, then we'll come back. And by that time, it's too late.
You hit it on the head there. Think about weed control in a lawn. You do your application, and most of the time, you better go back in 14 to 21 days and look at it again. Now, if you have killed all the weeds and took care of the problem, but you're not going back out again for 2 months, all right? Let's say that's the next time you go out to that lawn, or a month later. So the weeds that were there, you took care of But by the time you go back out there in 2 months, there's a whole new crop, so.
Yeah. No, yeah. We figured that our really picky customers that want a really beautiful lawn, it is impossible to do a quarterly or bi-monthly service. We literally have to be on there on a monthly, and we're still getting maybe on weeds, we're probably getting 95% control of tops.
That's actually very good.
Yeah, so we're, if we've got a 12,000, square foot lot, and we're, we might be treating, 500 feet of spot here and there, but they're still there. I mean, the customer, if they don't mow that lawn for, an extra 3 days, it's going to be very apparent. And, so we have all these issues that, it's production mindset and sell and all this. And I think we really need to take a step back in the industry and figure out, I mean, especially, us smaller companies can do that. We're really focused on that high quality. It does stifle our growth because we can't grow as fast as the other guys. The question is, do we want to? Yeah. And do we want to compete there? And I think those are always as a business owner, you're like, the economy's going down and we need to, up our sales. But if we up our sales, you're always in that struggle. The same thing you ran from, several years ago. We have to, we've got to figure it out as owners. How do we do it? And how do we? So I scaled back. What I've done is I scaled back massively the amount of services we provide to only a handful. And only a handful. And when people call me and says, do you do this? We don't do that anymore. Do you do bee removal? We don't do bee removal. Do you remove rodents from attics? We don't do it anymore. We don't do animal control because we can't be great at everything. We can only be maybe good at 2 things. So we've nailed it down to just GHP and LLO. And most of the time it's the same client that we're doing all 2 for. And we're not looking to grow, vertically so much because we can't get the people. That's our biggest challenge. If I could get the people, man, I could grow. The sky's the limit, but it's a human. It isn't. I told my customers, I says, can't you be here at 10 o'clock? And I says, I can't be there till 2 and between 12 and 2. And he says, but I don't understand. I says, you don't understand. It's raining. There's traffic and it isn't an instant download. The human person has to be there. It isn't something we can fix online. And everybody's into that online mentality and they forget that a human person, I mean, pretty soon you can fix a refrigerator probably and, download something and get a new download to a refrigerator and get them fixed because they had a bad download on the refrigerator. It requires a physical person to be there knowing what they're looking at. And, people forget that. And that's becoming more difficult, I think, Daniel, to in an instant download society to something where you have to wait for us until we get there. Because it's been raining, like you said, you see me miffed all the time about the amount. I mean, they called this the Sunshine State.
You got it.
Prove it.
The rain really messes you up.
You can't. Yeah, you can't prove it. So I think that's been our huge challenge is that getting the people is how. So right now I'm just determined. I've got our marketing good, and if we got our sales good, and our technical training, technical abilities good, we got to get really good as a small guy, and getting good at hiring. And the thing is, I sell a couple hundred people a year. I don't interview a couple hundred people a year to hire them. And that's that practice and getting into it. I think that's going to be my next discipline, that I have to be self-taught in how I'm going to do this and develop a system, because we want to grow, but that's been our huge challenge. So, that's there. Let me ask you this, because I know you've got a bunch of things going on with you're doing some coaching, you're doing some speaking. You've got the backyard snake, backyard spiders. You got a lot of things going there. So what's next for Daniel in semi-retirement? What are you looking at?
Well, today, as a matter of fact, I'm going to have to get there in a little while. I am actually doing a consultant thing, which, like I think I mentioned to you earlier, I've been trying to stay away from that. But later this year, I have already, I believe, I'd have to look at the book, 4 speaking engagements already booked for the fall and winter. And that's as far as the pest control end of it goes. But I'm also doing surveys on reptiles and such. I just got back from one. I was in North Carolina this whole past week, up there crawling on my belly in chigger-infested grass, taking photographs of snakes and such. And my son and we were out last night. I didn't get home until 3 this morning. We were on the Nature Coast with this rain event, trying to get some photographs of certain frogs and snakes last night on the Nature Coast, which is north of Cedar Key, around Chiefland area on the east coast of Florida. So I stayed fairly busy. I'm heading to Colorado in July, and that's reptile involved. And of course I have this PowerPoint I got to do for a manufacturer. I've been asked to do some PowerPoints for a manufacturer here in the U.S., mainly Florida based, because they like my photographs and my technique. So then I've been asked also to do some classes, online classes, PowerPoint, and I don't know if I'm going to do that because there's an actual deadline, and I hate deadlines, by the way. So, and especially now that I'm retired. So,
yeah, right. No pressure, guys. No pressure.
I've got some photography work I'm doing ticks of Florida, and I'm still trying to gather all those. Yeah, this company has asked me to photograph ticks. I did a bunch of roaches for them last year, and it was pretty lucrative. They paid me well, and so this time they want ticks, and there's like 4 or 5 species of ticks we have in Florida, and I've done 3 of the species. I need 2 more, and they're the hardest ones to find. So I'm in the process of doing that, and they pay me pretty well for these photographs.
I mean, that just dawned on me that you're going to go look for a specific insect, and like, how do you determine where you're going to find those 2? I mean, geez, are they specific to like a host of animal or something that you go to, or how do you find that? How do you find those 2 ticks that you're missing?
Yeah. The 2 ticks I'm missing, the hardest one is going to be the brown dog tick, because the brown dog tick is strictly a dog tick, although they will get on us. But you have to go to kennels and stuff like that to find them, because they're not found in the wild. These are the ticks. These are the ticks that'll infest homes and dog houses and kennels, and so that one there is going to be the hardest. But the other ones, the Lone Star, the American dog tick, and the deer tick, I just get a white towel or a rag, and I just go and I start dragging it through the grass in different areas, and then I pick it up and pull the ticks off of it. So you just, because ticks are naturally out there, you just have to go get them. I'll put them in a specimen jar, bring them to my studio here, and photograph them. And
how do you get them to pose for you?
That's the tricky part. Well, I actually have a technique. I have a piece of plexiglass, and it's a sort of a cream white colored plexiglass. And then I have a specimen glass specimen dish, and I put the tick on the plexiglass, and then I'll lay that over it, and then I'll go. And what happens, the tick just kind of, after a while of running, trying to get out of it, just relaxes. And then I take the specimen dish off, lay it aside, and photograph them until they move.
See, we
again.
just learned, we just learned one of your techniques today. That's amazing. You know, Daniel Dye's Pest Photographing Technique 103.
Yeah,
get them tired.
Yeah, a lot of people will freeze their specimen or refrigerate them, cool them down, but they don't look natural at that point. So, yeah, anything that you see of mine out there on, either any of the Facebook pages, whatever, One Cemetery or the rest of them, those are live specimens that are wanting to run away a lot of times, but I've learned to just put them under that dish, and if they don't fit under that dish, I get a bigger one. And and I just wait. I just go off, do something, I come back, take the dish off, and they're just kind of there.
That's amazing.
I'll get 4 or 5.
Yeah, they just
shots.
got tired.
Yeah, I'll get a few shots, and then you can see them starting to jitter a little bit, and I know they're about to bolt, so I'll cover them back up and go do something else. And that's how I get them.
So so photographing an insect could take a day easily of trying to get that shot.
Oh, yeah.
Because you got to, every time he feels like getting agitated, you got to wait another 3 hours and then come back and, maybe do a couple of minutes worth of work and to get that great shot. Well, it's a lot of work.
Well, that's pretty much it because, when I tell somebody the price for that particular photo, they look at me and go, oh, and I go, do you know what work went into getting that photograph? One roach, a female German roach, I'll probably take 50 to 100 photos of that thing and come up with the one photo that I like. And so, that's how it works.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially when you want to tick and you have to go drag yourself through the dirt to find it, and then come back and, let it rest for a while and then, wait 2 days to get that picture. Yeah, I could see why those pictures are very expensive. Most people would not appreciate that.
Yeah, and, I don't have a lab here that I grow these things or rare them. I just don't. I have to go get them.
Right. No, that's pretty cool though, man. So anything I miss. I know Yvonne that likes handling snakes.
Yes.
And that's probably why you married her. She works with you handling snakes. I mean, I've never met a woman that likes handling snakes, but that's okay.
Yeah, Yvonne will get out with me all the time. Anytime she can. Last night she didn't go, but my son did, and he's a heck of a photographer. He has a YouTube and all that kind of stuff going on. And
awesome.
She'll catch the snakes. She'll hold them. She'll bag them for me if it's one I want to keep for a while. Because what I'll do, I'll go out there and I'll catch it, bag it, bring it, and take a series of photographs. And I always mark GPS where that snake was caught. And it's very important that you release that snake right back where you got it from, because that's their territory. So
gotcha.
I have picked up snakes that are 4 hours away from my house, and then when I'm done with it, it's a 4-hour trip up and back. 8 hours just to take the snake back to where it belongs. So to give you an idea.
Oh wow.
So yeah, anyway,
man. So that's
pretty much my life.
Yeah, no, now. I think you just have more time to do what you really want to do, and be able to enjoy it. So yeah, I can't fathom retirement yet. I have no idea. I keep thinking that my retirement plan is a body bag that I'm going to keep in a drawer. just take me out on this, guys, when I'm done. I have no clue yet what I'm doing. I'm still too full of energy. I'm 47, and I still think sometimes that I'm 27, although my body keeps telling me I'm 47, and I keep arguing. And it doesn't help. But no, I'm really excited about the next step of what we're doing and seeing what you guys are doing, and a lot of people that are, in the field that I think we can get so much value from, based on, what you've done and your experience and being able to teach it. I think it's an awesome opportunity right now. Yeah. So I really do thank you for coming on, and I know we had some technical differences for staying on with me and going through this conversation. I really do appreciate it, and I think the audience will too. You're really loved, and you're out there, and you're respected, and you're just one of those people that. Oh, by the way, I'm just curious. I didn't ask you because you're known as Triple D.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if you didn't know that, but yeah. Then so what does the D stand for in Daniel in your name?
Yeah, that's my middle name is Darrell, and it's spelled Darrell. So it's Daniel Darrell Dye the Second.
The second. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I would understand why they just choose to call you Triple D, and it has nothing to do anything you're involved with, other than that's your name.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Not very adventurous, but that's just to clear it up for everybody, because that was a burning question for me. Is what does that other D stand for? I mean, it just was bugging me that I didn't know.
Well, my grandfather's name was Darrell Daniel, and then my father was Daniel Darrell, and he didn't want to make me a junior, so he made me the second. And I have a third.
The second, right?
Yeah, and I do have.
Oh, you did it again?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But everybody was saying, "Oh, Daniel, you should name your company Triple D Consultants and all that kind of stuff." And I said, "Oh yeah, type in Triple D."
Yeah, I can just see how you're going to show up on Google.
Exactly.
Yeah, not a good choice. So yeah, no, I am glad that you didn't go that route. But no, thank you so much for being on. You got anything you want to add, or any information that I didn't ask you about, or something you want to talk about?
Other than I hope the listeners get something out of this, and train, study, and be the best you can be in the industry. You'll do better. You'll have a better life, and your customers will look at you as a professional instead of some yo-ho with a can in your hand, if you know what I mean. So
yeah, no. Thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you for everything you've done. Greatly appreciate it. And I'll be putting this out sometime today. I'm really going to work on it, getting it up on the air. So I'll let you know when it's up. And thank you so much for being here. Really do appreciate it.
Well, Franklin, I had a great time. This was good. I appreciate it very much for having me on. And you enjoy your Memorial Day, okay?
I'm gonna. Thank you so much.
All right. You take care.
Take care, Daniel. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We hope you have enjoyed this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. Until next time, have a pestacular day.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.